All right, all right. Welcome back to another post-game episode of the Behind the Back podcast for the Philadelphia Eagles. I am your host, Marcos Conan Negrón, and I apologize if I sound a little bit sick. I am a little bit under the weather, but I'm coming to you after a Philadelphia Eagles loss 33-36 to the Washington Commanders. This was one of the, one of those bizarro games, right? Um a lot to take away from this game. Not long term. I don't think this loss defines anything about the Eagles. I think what it does just show is number one, Jalen Hurts is important to this team. People thought that Jalen might just kind of be the bus driver to this insane offense with all these cast of characters, but he was equally just as big of a part to this team. So for those who doubted him, I don't think everybody kind of felt this way, but to those who doubted his impact in this offense, um, it just shows that it takes all of them to really make this team go. They need Jalen, they need Saquon, they need AJ, they need Devontae, they need all of them, right? And this was important. Jalen, for those who didn't watch the game, Jalen went out in the first quarter with a concussion. It was weird because, in the last time they played the Commanders, Jalen got slammed face first into the ground. And it looked like on that play, he got more concussed. But he went into the tent and then he came back out and he finished the rest of the game. But for this one, yeah, he got hit, but it wasn't a helmet to helmet. His head does kind of, hit the ground a little bit, but it didn't look that bad. And he got up and he tried to say it was okay. He goes to the medical tent, he comes out, tries to put back on his helmet and ready to go back out there. But the training staff tells him, he needs to go back. So they basically he wanted to be out there. And when they went back to the locker room, when he got the individual neurologist, he was sprinting to the locker room. It wasn't like a jog. He was like, I'm ready to go. I want to get back out there. So unfortunately he wasn't able to come back in, and it was the Kenny Pickett show. And, there was a lot of things that makes this game weird. The defense forced 5 turnovers on the Commanders. And normally speaking, when you force 5 turnovers, you're going to win the game. But that's not what happened. And this was a penalties galore game. We were sloppy. We had 10 penalties for 91 yards. The Commanders had 6 penalties. AJ was winning his matchup with Marshawn Lattimore all day, holding, pass interference after pass interference call. And he honestly could have had more. There was one late in the, I think it was the third quarter, where Kenny hits him under pressure, and AJ has the ball in his hands, but he gets sandwiched by 2 dudes, and the safety helmet to helmet contact, and AJ was calling for the foul. And on top of that, Lattimore was just grabbing on his stomach the whole time. So the reffing in this game was so up and down for both teams. It was very inconsistent. They were calling ticky tack personal fouls, like roughing the passer penalties on the Eagles. Milton Williams had one on Jaden Daniels, Jalen Carter had one, and they were really soft. And so it was a really weird game. But the Eagles shot themselves in the foot in this one. You force 5 turnovers, you should be winning this game. You force 5 turnovers, you win the time of possession 36 minutes to 23 minutes. You had less first downs, you were running the ball, but you had more plays. You were in control the whole game. The Eagles were up 21-7 to start the first quarter. It just felt like it was going to be the Saquon show. Saquon had 100 yards in the first quarter alone with 2 touchdowns. He broke off a big one, and it looked like it was going to be on pace to be a huge day. He finished with 150 yards, so he is on pace. If he has 135 plus yards the next 2 games, he is on pace to break the record for the rushing record. But the offense was obviously a little bit different with Kenny Pickett. And Kenny Pickett, for what it's worth, he played admirably, coming in the middle of the game. That's a hard spot to come in. Yes, it was early in the game, so he did get better as the game went on. He finished with 14 to 24, 143 yards, a touchdown and interception, and ran for 13 yards. And especially in the fourth quarter, I thought he did a really good job of maintaining drives and sustaining drives. And he made some big plays. So I do think that, let's say, for example, since Jalen is concussed, if he has to sit out next week against Dallas, with a week of practice, with a week of reps with these guys, I think Kenny Pickett's would perform better. I think the offense would perform better. AJ even said after the game, he's like, I've been training with Jalen Hurts for 3 years. And Kenny just came on the team this year, and I haven't really got any reps with them. These guys were kind of just doing it on the fly. And the Eagles really had to change up their system a little bit. It was just feed AJ, feed Devontae, that's it. Like, no one else got a touch from the receiving side of things. Kenny Gainwell had 1 catch for 6 yards, but it was AJ for 8 catches, 97 yards and a touchdown, and Devontae had 6 catches for 51 yards. And before I get into Devontae's role in this loss, I think that, Kenny, given the spot, he did throw an interception early on, but it was, he was still getting in the rhythm of things. I think despite that, he did well enough. He did score a touchdown. He did well enough to keep this team in this game, especially in the end. But then it came down to a couple crucial plays. And that's kind of how it goes in games like this, where your team is the one that kind of throws it away. Kenny Pickett earlier had in the fourth, he had a great throw to Saquon on a wheel route, and it was a little behind him. So Saquon had to adjust because he had beat Bobby Wagner, but he adjusted and he dropped the ball. Bobby made a good play, was able to poke it out on the way down, and it just ended up, being incomplete. And then the play that mattered the most, with right before the 2-minute warning, it was 3rd and 5. The Eagles had a chance to close the game out, and Devonta Smith was wide open, and the ball was in his hands. It was in his hands, and then he bobbled it and dropped it, and that cost us. That had to be the play that eventually, and then Commanders, we kicked the field goal to make it 33-28, and the Commanders were able to respond, go all the way down the field, and score a touchdown at the very last play with 10 seconds to go. And it's hard to blame the defense in this game. But at the same time, this was a very boom or bust game, feast or famine for the defense. You have 5 turnovers, but they were allowing chunk plays that they haven't been allowing all year. Jaden Daniels, got to give him credit for his performance. He had 24 for 39, 258 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. And on the same time, on the ground, he rushed for 81 yards. The Eagles held the Commanders' running backs to, what was it? It was 32 yards, 15 attempts for 32 yards. They stopped the run game, but Jaden Daniels was able to make huge play after huge play with his legs. And it was a backbreaker. And that's what makes this was a signature game for Jaden. I have to give him his props. He did what he had to do to beat the Eagles. And a lot of things had to go his way, right? Because he made mistakes in this game. The Eagles capitalized on their mistakes a bit. But once Kenny got in there in the middle of it, this team said, hey, okay, we'll let Kenny Pickett beat us. Saquon's not going to really get anything going. Saquon had 100 yards in the first quarter and was only able to manage 40 yards the rest of the game. So it was tough. And the Eagles they adjusted just a little bit it took them a little bit too long to adjust, because by the fourth quarter, we were sustaining drives. We were getting penalties, we were being helped, but it was a good job by Kenny to get the ball in the air towards AJ, and AJ was able to make a play regardless of whether it ended up in a penalty or he ended up catching it. He had a few amazing catches in this game. But when we talk about this game, it's going to be the Devonta Smith drop, the Saquon drop, Jalen Hurts' injury, and the defense also, giving up big plays. And a huge part of this game for the defense was CJ Gardner Johnson being ejected in this game. And that one was tough because he got ejected for talking. And listen, like, he's a fiery guy, but it sucks when you get ejected. It felt like an NBA game where the ref teed him up twice. Like, it's football. It's physical. These guys are in their face. CJ wasn't pushing dudes. He was just talking, and he was instigating. That's what he was doing. But, you have to be aware as a player how the refs are going to call the game. And if the refs are going to be ticky-tack and say, hey, you can't be saying this stuff, you can't go back and say it again. So I think CJ was just playing with fire a little bit too much and trying to bring an intensity that is totally fine. But you can't get yourself ejected, dude. Like, this defense suffered once you left the field. You cost this defense big plays. Tristan McCollum was just not it. He did not play well in CJ's absence. So that was an underrated moment. I texted Ben. I was like, CJ being ejected could be huge for this game. And it ended up costing them. There was a lot of things, sloppy penalties, drop passes, just a lack of execution today. And this was an uncharacteristic game by Philly. And the Commanders also, man, like, you get away with it with 5 turnovers and you still come out with a win. Like it's just bizarre. In most, I don't know the exact number. I believe it was about 1,500 games in the past 9 years that came down to teams that had 5 turnovers, and the team only won 150 of them. That's such a low percentage. It rarely happens. So it's frustrating and it's annoying to say the least. But listen, if Jalen was in that game, we were gonna cook them. And it's easy to say, in hindsight, based off of how it was going early on, maybe the rhythm would have got disrupted, but it was hard to stop Jalen and Saquon, and they didn't have a strategy for them early on. And they ended up having, once Jalen left the game, it was, hey, we're not gonna let Saquon beat us, and Kenny has to beat us, and he almost did. And again, it came down to a drop. So it's when you don't play your best game against a good team, you lose when you shoot yourself in the foot, when you give the opposing team other chances to win. So the thing is, big picture takeaways, there's not many in this game because this game was very fluky. But you got to give the Commanders credit for winning the game and stepping up when it matters most and finishing the drives. So, I get this was a great game to watch. I was glued to my seat, it was very intense. And I thought we had it. It was one of those games where you thought you had it. So definitely frustrating. But it's definitely one that gets me excited because these two teams are on a collision course. And I do think that with the way Jaden Daniels is playing, the way the Commanders have played the Eagles this past few years, this is a real legitimate rivalry brewing. And there was a level of intensity in this game where both teams were scrappy. This was a divisional game. And it's hard to sweep divisional games when your opponent on the other side is this good. So the Commanders have been a good team all year. They just clinched a playoff spot, first 10-win season since RG3 was here. So, this is a good game for them, good moment for them, and it'll be great because, barring some movement with Green Bay or Minnesota or Atlanta or Tampa Bay, I know Tampa just lost too, but it looks like the Eagles are going to end up playing the Commanders in the first round, and it would be in Philly, and I'm not afraid. I think we're going to win that game. I think it's, especially if Jalen's there, especially if guys are healthy. We did suffer a few injuries. Jordan Davis got hurt. Josh Sweat came in and out of this game. Darius Slay came in and out of this game. So it's a matter of, are these guys who are hurt seriously hurt, and is it going to keep them out for a while? That's something we need to monitor as the week goes on. But we're going to have to see it. But if we match up against these guys in the playoffs, I'm more than confident that we're going to take the cake, because listen, we could always say we want to win as many games as possible, but we've won 10 straight games. I think it's good that we lost this one, in a sense of like, okay, now we don't have to worry about entering the playoffs, entering a conference final on like a 12, 15, 13 game winning streak, and having a win streak kind of be in the back of your mind. Now it's just like, okay, let's reset, focus on the playoffs. We're going to get the 2 seed. It makes these next 2 games against Dallas and the Giants a little bit less important. So, but in a good way, this helps this team kind of reset. They got to taste a loss for the first time in 2 months. So this makes these guys felt disgusted in the locker room. They knew they let one get away from them, and they knew they had to play better. Even with Kenny Pickett, they knew that they missed Jalen Hurts. It was very obvious that they missed Jalen Hurts. But for this team, there was no excuses. So I think this was a good loss to have. It was annoying, it's frustrating, but it's one of those games that can wake you up a little bit. So I think as a positive, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. So you get that loss out of the way now, and it's time to take it to them in the playoffs and, give the rookie a taste of what the link is going to taste like when he gets here in the playoffs in a few weeks. So, and again, that's barring a collapse on their end, barring if, whoever moves up, but it's looking like these two are going to crash in the first round. So it's going to be exciting. But yeah, disappointing, but it's one of those games where it was fluky. You're not really worried. This wasn't anything that exposed the Eagles. If anything, I was just nervous that guys got hurt, and it's just going to be a matter of, can these guys get healthy before the playoffs? Obviously, we'll get Dallas Goedert back. He's just been on IR the whole time. So we're going to have pieces missing potentially. I don't know how bad Jordan Davis is. He never came back. But guys stepped up. Guys made big plays. they just also allowed some big plays. Like Quignon allowed his first, major touchdown to Terry. And it was, he thought Terry was going to go inside and Terry just kept running and, he got beat. So, and Jaden dropped a perfect pass. Jaden hit some really nice throws in this game, but he also had a couple rookie moments. So, you know, game balls, it's tough to give out game balls in this one just because, like, there was a lot of good play, but I don't want to reward this team for the way that they played because they let this one slip. And it was tough. I would give one to A.J. Brown for being effective and owning his matchup with Marshawn Lattimore. Um, he made a comment saying that Lattimore would have fouled out in an NBA game with the way he was grabbing him the whole time. But AJ definitely won that matchup today. And Saquon, listen, 150 yards, that was awesome. It's hard to blame Saquon for the second half when the defense was literally focusing on him the whole time, stacking the box, making it impossible. Not his fault, not the running scheme's fault, but he still ended up with 150 yards, broke a big play. You're still in play for the rushing record, but given the fact that we're not really in the push for the 1 seed anymore, we're kind of locked into that 2 seed, it makes things a little bit more complicated. So, the defense, they had some good plays. Jalen Carter made some good plays. Milton Williams made good plays. Darius Slay made some good plays. Reed got the interception. But it sucks when they gave up so many big plays. And it just felt like there were so many plays that they could have had, and Jaden Daniels was able to make a special play with his legs. So it was a little frustrating. So what does this mean? What does this mean for the next couple weeks? Right. I mentioned how it's not as, these games lost their little bit of importance in terms of, okay, we're no longer chasing the 1 seed, but we haven't won the division yet. We haven't clinched it yet. We clinch it with a win in one of these next 2 games, and they're against the Cowboys and the Giants. And the Giants just got blasted by Atlanta with Michael Penix, and the Cowboys just stunned the Bucks. So the Cowboys are going to want to give everything they have to the Eagles, and it's going to be a huge question of whether Jalen plays next week or not. Maybe they let him sit next week against the Cowboys, let him get healthy, and see if the Eagles can win without him. And if they do, then you'll let him get like a series or 2 to prep for the playoffs because we won't get the bye, but then he gets the bye next week. But then if you lose to Dallas, then Jalen, then everyone's, it's all systems go against the Giants for the clinching the division and clinching the 2 seed. So there's still a lot at stake, and the Eagles don't have that much room for error. But fortunately, we finished with the Cowboys and the Giants. So it gives us, a better chance. They're at home, so we are likely to win at least one of those 2 games, and it's going to be huge. It's really important. This game against the Commanders was important. So it sucks that we lost because we could have taken care of business. It would have been, a nice breeze into the last 2 weeks fighting for the 1 seed, but knowing we locked up the division in the 2 seed. So with that still in question, we're not out of the woods yet, and we need to take care of business. So a lot of things to monitor this week. Ben and I will not be doing our normal pod this week. We're enjoying the Christmas break, and I hope everybody has a wonderful Christmas as well. But it's going to be a lot of speculation of how good is this team without Jalen? Will Kenny Pickett be able to get the job done next week if he is ready to go, if he is going to be the starter? But Kenny got hurt too. Kenny did get hurt in this game. He got an MRI for his wrist. He also looked like he took some damage to his ribs. He was in pain, but playing through the pain. So I have to, commend him for that because he made big plays despite going through some injuries. We have Tanner McKee as a backup, and it'll be very interesting to see just what's the situation now. So it'll be huge if Jalen can get back because this offense is completely different with Jalen in the offense, and he has shown his importance to this offense. So these next 2 weeks are going to be huge, but I'm confident in this team. I'm still confident that even if we have to go into Detroit or Minnesota for the conference finals, that we are still capable of winning that game. So it's just going to be a matter of, can we stay healthy? Will these guys lock in and take care of business these next 2 weeks? So, there's going to be a lot to take a look at, a lot to worry about, a lot to, make sure that everything goes well during these next few weeks. But I trust this team. I don't think they're going to collapse. I think everything is different this year. I think they're going to be able to bounce back. I think this loss was good for them in the sense that it lit a fire under them. No team wins the Super Bowl on a win streak. So on a win streak that's 10 plus games. That's not normal. That usually doesn't happen. So we reset the clock, take care of business, get ready for next week against Dallas. So Ben and I will be back week after next, to talk the potential Giants matchup, and we're going to talk Kings. Kings are going through it right now. They just lost to the Pacers today too. We don't even know where to go with this team. So hopefully some moves have been made this next week. So, we'll have more to talk about. But this was the Behind the Back Post Game Pod for the Philadelphia Eagles, Week 16 edition. The Eagles take a loss, but we're still sitting pretty at 12-3, and we're still very much in control of our destiny for the division. So we'll see what happens. But you guys can hit us up at behindthebackpod13@gmail.com. Hit us up on any of our social medias. The links are down in the description below. Give us a like, subscribe, rate, follow, review, comment, all that fun jazz. We appreciate you guys, all the love and support we receive, and we're growing with you guys each and every single day, and we're grateful for it. We're grateful for everyone this holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah to all our friends out there. Happy New Year's. Really appreciate everybody. But I'm Marcos Gonegron. I love you guys. I will talk to you in about a week or so. Peace.